Hey guys, welcome back to Horsetooth Cinema. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I uploaded, but I was back in Ireland to graduate for a little bit, so that took a lot of my time, and then I had COVID afterwards, and so it's just been kind of hard to find the time to upload recently, but I'm back and I've got some plans for you guys coming up soon. And I figured I'd start off with a way too late to the party review for a movie that came out earlier this year that I just recently caught up with, and that is going to be Doctor Strange 2, which I think is also called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I think. I intentionally missed this movie when it came out in theaters, and regardless of how excited I might be for an MCU movie, I just try not to support them in theaters. One, the ticket prices for these movies are usually a little bit jacked up compared to what you might normally get. And two, just the amount of screenings that they have in these theaters for Marvel movies is fucking ludicrous. And I just rather support movies that I think could use my support a little bit more. But I do like to catch up with them every once in a while when when they leave theaters, and so that's what I did with this one. So let's just get right into it. The plot of Doctor Strange 2 is that Doctor Strange is deported back into medieval days, where he is captured by the dreaded Lord Arthur. Aided by the deadly chainsaw that has become his only friend, Doctor Strange is sent on a perilous mission to recover the Book of the Dead, or the Necronomicon, a powerful tool that gives its owner the power to summon the army of the ghouls. I'm just kidding, actually. That was actually the plot of Army of Darkness, but after I watched Doctor Strange 2, I was like, close enough. As I've mentioned in a lot of my other videos, I'm tired of Marvel movies and the MCU in particular. At one point I actually thought I was tired of all superhero movies, but there have definitely been some exceptions for me in the past few years. If you watch my Batman video, you know that I loved the new Batman movie. I think it's maybe the best live action one that's been done so far. I really loved Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's one of the few superhero movies where you can feel that the person who made it really loves comic books. And I've even liked movies like, you know, James Wan's Aquaman, stuff like that. The superhero movies I like nowadays tend to have a couple of things in common. One, they're more or less tonally consistent, very important. And two, they feel like they're made with passion for the material, or at least the superhero aesthetic. And I think those are two things that MCU movies just completely lack nowadays. I think that they're often just all over the place when it comes to tonal consistency, and they just feel like they're churned out on an assembly line, more or less, and the filmmaker doesn't usually seem to have that much passion for it. So when I heard that Sam Raimi was making Doctor Strange 2, I was a mixture of confused, but also a little bit excited, because he really is one of my favorite filmmakers. I love all three of his Evil Dead movies. I think they're amazing, as well as his Spider-Man trilogy, yes, even the third one. So I was excited because, you know, he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and I was really hoping that he would make a movie that would just completely break the MCU mold. But I was also nervous just because I'm very cynical about how much power Sam Raimi would actually have dealing with a massive studio like that. Times have changed so much, even since he was dealing with Sony 10 plus years ago making the Spider-Man movies. And I also just thought it was a weird choice because Sam Raimi is very well known, especially in his horror movies, for practical special effects. The MCU is the polar antithesis of that, and especially Doctor Strange, because his character is all about sort of universe bending and things like that, things that can't be done with practical effects and are very CG dependent. So I didn't really understand why he wanted to tackle this character in particular. And now that I finally caught up with it, I can pretty much say that it's exactly what I expected, in that it's Sam Raimi wrapped in chains being forced to make an MCU movie. Even if that's not true in terms of his actual passion and willingness to make this movie, that's kind of what it felt like to me. I'm going to start off this review by giving the King a little bit of credit first, as he did manage to get a lot of weirdness into this movie that doesn't usually exist in these kind of films, so I was happy with that. There's a lot of horror comedy imagery in particular. Doctor Strange's evil twin is really cool looking. I really like that sequence. Wanda, Scarlet Witch, they basically, in the third act, turn her into an Evil Dead demon, which is just fantastic. And there's even a little bit of like third-rate splatter violence that I kind of wasn't expecting, and I thought was a little surprising for you know, a PG-13 rated superhero movie. So even though stuff like that was fun visually, it still only really felt like flashes of the Sam Raimi that I know and love. One, just because of how CG they were, and two, just because how uninspired they were visually compared to a lot of his other work. It really just kind of felt like Sam Raimi's B-sides. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, even the plot is really similar to something like Army of Darkness, where they're looking for this book that's basically the Necronomicon. And I didn't see this in the theater, but I know that a lot of people, theater audiences, were sort of reacting, they were sort of laughing at the movie at a lot of points, especially a lot of the stuff I just mentioned, a lot of the horror comedy stuff. And that's kind of strange to me, because I think all that stuff is easily the best stuff in the movie. The rest of it is insanely dull. The rest was full of these like exposition dumps that are reverse shot on a green screen. And you're not really even gonna fully understand these exposition dumps because unless you watched like WandaVision, the TV show that this is tied into with, and which I didn't, so I was incredibly confused for a lot of it. And the third act is basically, there's no real like set pieces, it's all these like insanely CGI noise vomit action sequences that pretty much all these movies are now. One thing that also really bothered me, just in terms of the story, was just how much focus there was on Doctor Strange, the character. This is something that sort of bothered me in the first movie too, just because the first Doctor Strange is interesting visually, but it's not really, like, he's not a very compelling character, I don't think. And in this movie, that problem is made worse because you actually juxtapose alongside of him Scarlet Witch, who I think is a much more interesting character, much more sympathetic, and yet she's not really the focus of it. So that aspect of it I just thought was a little uneven and didn't make much sense to me. So I don't have too much more to say about it. I think overall it was just a kind of a disappointing experience. I appreciate that Sam Raimi tried to sort of shitpost the MCU by putting some of his goofy horror shit in there. But honestly, if you want to watch Sam Raimi shitposting a studio, just watch Spider-Man 3. It just works so much better. Like the movie in general is just so much more emotionally engaging, and it's sort of campy in a more fun way, I think. So I'm gonna give this 2 stars. I don't have too much more to say about it. I just didn't get very much out of this. I honestly just kind of wanted to do a review that was a little bit more on the negative side, just because I've been doing a lot of positive ones lately, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't exactly want to pick a very small target either. This movie is like the 3rd highest grossing movie of this year. I didn't really like it, so that's all I really have to say. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please click down here below and subscribe to the channel if you want. I've got some more reviews coming out soon. Should be doing the Banshees of Inisherin here in a minute, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.